tonight, as I said, we wanted to do action, so if my husband will hit the enter button, I'm hoping it's a slide that I wanted to show. Oh, okay. This is how you can get connected to us. We have a Facebook page. We have a Twitter account. Anybody in here who has a Twitter account tonight, if you have your device with you, please tweet and use the following hashtags. Pat, once again, hit the following hashtags is what we're looking for tonight. So if you want to talk about something going on at the Gold Dome, hash Gold Dome, or Forsyth County Tea Party, or Georgia politics, GAPOL. We are not using Georgia GOP because we're not the GOP. So Georgia POL, FCTP, or the Gold Dome, anything like that. And if everybody would just kind of follow this as you're going through the meeting, anything that you hear that you want to comment on, be sure to use one of those hashtags, and we would appreciate it because we can follow each other. And Geoff, I have nothing more to say about you, but come on up and talk to us.
I'm going to try to go without the mic. I'm going to try to go without the mic. Can y'all hear me in the back? Yes. Because it's just easier. Today was a great day. Today was good because we got to celebrate the life of a bold, courageous individual. My kids didn't have school. I got to be a capitalist and go to work for 6 hours and actually make money as a builder and didn't have to go to drive down to the Capitol. So today, and I get to end it up with a great group of conservatives here, so today was a good day. It's always an honor to speak to this crowd for a number of reasons. But probably the one that sticks out the most is because this is where it really started for me. This is where my campaign started. In fact, it was right there back in that back row where I first walked in here a couple of years ago, sat in that back row and started to talk to folks around me. This group is the first group in the county that gave me a chance to just talk to me and to hear my game plan. It's neat to look out and see a bunch of faces out here that held signs and made courageous calls and prayed for our family. So I got a special place in my heart for this crowd. So this group is very impactful. We're down at the Capitol and you're on the floor and you hear individuals, Mike Dudgeon and other reps, talk about conversations that are created in this room and with this crowd. So I want to continue to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing. Continue to have those conversations in your neighborhood. Continue to show up to these meetings and support it. Because if we're going to change this country, it's not going to happen with one stroke in Washington, D.C. It's going to start in meetings like this all over this country where folks begin to get a game plan. They begin to get serious, begin to put pressure, begin to elect the right individuals. That's how we're truly going to find a change. So it's an honor to be here tonight. I want to start off with, obviously we just kicked off the legislative session down at the Capitol last Monday, and you're right to talk about that. It seems like it's going to be a compressed period of time that we're in. And for the reasons of you can't raise money while you're in session. I'm terrible at raising money anyway, so it really doesn't affect me. But so yeah, there's this impression that we're going to be short, and so it's important for me, and I know there's a lot of other members, we want leadership to be certain that we take seriously the legislation that we've got in front of us. Because there's some pretty serious stuff that's out in front of us. We've got education reform, which I know a number of you are concerned about in this room. We've got expanding gun rights, which almost got to the finish line last year, but didn't. And we've got a bill called HB 707, which I'll talk about in a minute. One of the things I want to do is explain the legislative process to you down at the Gold Dome. Some of you probably know how this works, but we have 40 legislative days throughout the course of our session. Those are not consecutive days. Typically they're not. It usually spans out through about the first part of April, and they're strategically placed when we have them. We'll take a day off from a session day to maybe have a budget hearing or whatnot. So by the session being quicker this year, we're pretty much going Monday through Friday, with the exception of today because of the holiday, Monday through Friday, which should put us out around the middle of March, which will get us out there and let folks, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of folks who've been running for a while, that have been in office for a while, that have opponents. And at the end of the day, opponents, it sometimes makes us better. A lot of times it makes us better. It makes us sharpen our skills. Fortunate, glad, my family, my wife and kids are glad that so far we don't have an opponent now. So it would be great to see if that continues for our family. I talked about HB 707. I don't know if has anyone heard of HB 707? It's Georgia's, okay, Michael has. 707 is an interesting bill. It was written by Representative Jason Spencer, strong conservative from South Georgia. Wait, he lives so far South Georgia that some days he drives to Jacksonville, catches a plane to fly to Atlanta to go to session. So that's about as far south as you can get. Proud to be a co-signer on this bill. This is the first really, this has the best chance of, it's not nullifying, but essentially taking out Obamacare here in Georgia.
Yeah.
5 other states in this country, and I just caught wind from Jason yesterday. 5 other states have dropped the same piece of legislation. Here's what it does. Obamacare, through the Obama administration, through their infinite wisdom, used states, individual states, to implement and sustain Obamacare. Right? So they're writing checks to different government agencies, state agencies, to implement, to go out and enroll people, educate people, sign people up, deal with problems, navigate people through the different pathways. What this bill does is it outlaws any state of Georgia asset to be used for the implementation or sustainment of the ACA. It looks like this bill is going to have great traction going forward. It looks like, you know, we've almost got a supermajority in the House, we've got a supermajority in the Senate, we've got a Republican governor. If this thing can move through committee and get on the floor, I think we're going to vote it out. It's going to bring challenges, right? I mean, now, you know, this is the scary part about the Obamacare. So what happens? We're midstream into it, and we all of a sudden it gets repealed or gets pulled or whatnot. I'm willing to take that risk. I think my kid's future is more important than the risks or the turmoil that we may have short term. We can't afford Obamacare. The interesting thing about Georgia is why we're implementing this. First came out that, and sorry to pick on your Bulldogs here for a minute.
Not really.
Look, I didn't know you were going to say that. Probably sounds like I'm getting back. Nobody in Georgia wants it, right? No, we can't afford it. We don't want it. None of our bodies, legislative bodies, want it. Our governor doesn't want it. Our citizens don't want it. The majority of the citizens don't want it. So Jason found out through some means that the Obama administration was struggling because we would not allow navigators to be formed. We decided that the state of Georgia did not want to use our resources or our assets to install our own navigators. And so the burden then fell back on the federal government to set up the navigators. Well, they don't have the bandwidth or the resources to pull it off. So quietly, in the disguise of the evening, they stroked a check for $1.7 million to a department at the University of Georgia. Nobody knew about it. They stroked a check for $1.7 million and gave them a list of demands and said, here, you can keep this, and we need you to use some of those funds to roll out and implement Obamacare. Well, here's the problem I've got with that. One, I struggle with the budgets that go to the Board of Regents anyways. It's a runaway freight train right now that's putting just unbelievable strain on our budget. But if we approve their budgets, we approve the billions and billions of dollars that go out there, what gives them the right to go behind our back and disobey what the people have spoken in the state of Georgia?
Right.
So HB 707 is going to be an awesome piece of legislation that I hope to see get some steam for. And look, you'll hear me talk about this at the end. My goal in Georgia is to get so many things right that other states can't help but look at us as an example state. And I think if we can show that we can pull it off and we can push it out and our citizens can embrace it, then we hope the other states to do it also. So, 2 other pieces of legislation that I want to talk about, and I'll be selfish for a minute. They're my first 2 bills that I've got going through the legislature. One I dropped last year, I briefly talked about. HR 108. HR 108 is the right to a secret ballot. It's a pretty big deal. When Obama first came in, they wanted to enact something called card check. And it's involved with organized labor. And right now, the way organized labor works, and look, there may be a format, there may be a business, there may be an industry where organized labor is a good fit. I haven't necessarily seen it on in any sort of big capacity, but it may be out there. So this is not an attempt to squash out organized labor. What it does is it gives the power to individuals to decide on their own if they want to be a part of organized labor. So card check was coming out as the ability for, instead of it being a secret ballot for, if you worked at a company and there was a movement to join a labor union, it would be a secret ballot where 50 plus 1% would have to sign up with a secret ballot and say, yes, that's what we want to do, and then the shop would become a union shop. Card check would now force that into a card, physically a piece of paper that would go around where folks would have to sign their name on that card and say, yes, I want to join. Okay, well, what happens if you say, no, I don't want to? You've now exposed your vote and you've put it out there for widespread intimidation, possible intimidation. There's stories about certain organized labor groups around the country meeting people in their kids' carpool lines, out front of their churches, at their houses. There's no reason for that. So the right to a secret ballot just ensures the fact that our hardworking Georgians get to make their own decisions. Their families get to make their own decisions. These are big decisions. These are important decisions. And so because it's a constitutional amendment, which is not my intent was to come out with this big bill right off the bat, but it's just the way the cookie crumbled. I've got to get a supermajority in the House. I've got to get a supermajority in the Senate. And I've got to get a referendum through 10.5 million people here in Georgia to vote on the ballot that they want to do it. So I feel confident that we can push it forward. I've met with the Speaker, I've met with the leadership, and it looks like this is a bill that's going to get some traction. So, and if it does and it gets to the House floor, I think there'll be some national attention to it. There's 5 other states who've done it. They've all been challenged by the NLRB and in federal court, and all 5 states have won the case. So that's bill number 1. Bill number 2, I just dropped last week, and it is HB 749. It's the Cargo Theft Act. Many of you are going to be surprised to hear this like I was. Georgia ranks 3rd in the nation in cargo theft. 3rd in the nation. I couldn't believe it when I heard it. And so I started to meet with different groups. I met with the GBI, the Truckers Association, and said, how is this possible? A couple of things came out. One, we've got a tremendous amount of interstates in Georgia. Our geographic location is such that a lot of businesses call this home for their distribution and logistics centers. And third, we have the port. The port's 8,000 containers a day. If DC does their job and allows us to deepen the port, that's going to be 16,000 intermodal containers a day. But it still didn't tell me why the problem. Why is there so much theft going on behind Texas and California? And the reason is organized crimes decided to call Georgia home because our laws are not tough enough. There's one paragraph in our code, in our law, that describes what cargo theft is and what the penalty is for it. So we're not tough enough on criminals. And typically what's been happening is these are cross-jurisdictional crimes, right? There's trucks coming through Georgia, and there's the county that the theft happens in, there's the freight's not from that county, the driver's not from that county, and so a sheriff gets called in. And so the person ends up, if they get caught, prosecuted for stealing a truck, which in most instances is a couple of months in jail maybe, if that. And they now, when they get out, they've got $100,000 has been wired to an offshore account somewhere because they stole $10 million worth of baby formula that netted $2 million south of the border. So we're excited about the Cargo Theft Act. What it does, it actually ties the dollar amount of the value of the cargo that's been stolen to the penalty that's issued. So there's a threshold from anything under $1,500 is a misdemeanor, but above $1,500 to $10,000 is a penalty. $10,000 to $100,000, $100,000 to $1 million, and $1 million and over. The example that really just completely blew my mind was a pharmaceutical company. And that's really where this is happening is pharmaceuticals. This stuff gets stolen and ends up in an online pharmacy in 2 or 3 days. There was a small pharmaceutical company that makes cholesterol medication. And this actually did not happen in Georgia. It happened going from Kentucky to Tennessee. 10 pallets, 10 little pallets, the size of one of these tables, was $57 million worth of medication. The truck it was a staged event, started a year in advance where the right employees were positioned in these warehouses. They worked there, they understood the timing, the schedule, and that kind of stuff. And the truck went out, it was hijacked, and they found the truck a day later. So great, $57 million worth of pharmaceuticals. Problem is the FDA has a rule. It's probably a good rule, but it was outside of the custodialship of that shipper. And because it was a refrigerated need, they couldn't guarantee that the medicine was refrigerated for a certain period of time. So the $57 million worth of medicine got flushed. Here's where it gets worse. The FDA also has a penalty that says the entire lot, the entire production lot has got to be destroyed. $200 million worth of product. So this law looks like we have great momentum. I've got some strong folks on the House floor that have signed on to the bill. Hope to have a hearing in the next week or two and be able to bring it forward. I mentioned earlier that the big picture is we want to get so many things right here in Georgia. You know, I think if we all look through that lens, us as citizens, us as legislators, we look at that, I think some of the problems in DC start to get fixed. But there's a big important step that comes through here. And that's we have got to understand, and I know this room does, but we've got to be great advocates for states are going to be what makes change in Washington, D.C. We have all got to begin to be, Georgia's got to be the example. But just imagine if 35, 36, 37, 38 states show up in Washington, D.C. And Paul knows this very, very well. He's a big supporter of this. They show up in Washington, D.C. and say, look, we've got our fiscal house in order. We're doing the things that we need to do for the next generation to succeed, and we're here to push the flush button. And we send hundreds of folks home. We've got to get it right here. We can't just be so focused up there because it's broken. It's institutionalized. I spent a few weeks up there, a few days up there a couple of months ago, and it amazed me at how the process, it's all funneled around the system. It's institutionalized. There's a playbook. You want to get a bill passed, even if it doesn't make sense, open the playbook and follow the 73 things or the 78 things it tells you to do and who to talk to and who to support, and that's how a bill becomes a law. Instead of being funneled through its people. We need to elect the right people to be in those offices. So at the end of the day, I want Georgia to be that shining city on the side of the hill, like Ronald Reagan used to say. I want us to get so many things right, because when the world starts to make money, and it's soon, it's going to be soon, hopefully, Georgia's going to be an incredible place to live and work and raise your families. Because we've got so many things in order here now. Businesses are going to continue to attract here. We're going to continue to make the, we've got a conservative majority everywhere you look. We want to continue and hang on to that. But we've just got to do things the right way. We can't take the easy way out. So it amazes me how complicated folks in politics make the whole process, right? But it amazes me even more how complicated they make solutions, right? In our businesses that we run, we have to make solutions simple to understand. We've got to be clear and concise. Now, obviously, there's this word called politics in it, and folks trying to jockey for position and whatnot. But there's a three-part plan that myself and some others have begun to really support. We simplify the recovery in this country. Produce more, spend less, and become energy independent. It's that simple, right? I challenge you, and I'll open up for questions at the end for a couple of minutes if I have. I think I've got 30 minutes. Whatnot.
You've got about 10 more minutes.
Okay, so if I have a couple of minutes, I challenge y'all to think of a hole, and I hope you do. Shoot a hole in that. But I don't know of a problem that's out there. If we produce more, it's not the government produces more. The government doesn't produce a single job. The government hires somebody under the disguise of a job, but really what it is, it's a liability, right? We have to pay for that. We spend less. Look at every line item in the budget. I look at how we continue to cut 2%, 2%, 2%, 2%, 3%. We get to the point where we make entire departments inefficient. What we need to start to do is identify areas of the budget that we just don't need to be any part of, and take entire line items out, billions and billions and billions of dollars, and put them on the side. Say, private sector, y'all go figure this out. Y'all go make this work. This generation has got to be selfless. We got to understand that it's going to be painful to recover if we're really truly concerned about the next generation. Leads me to something I want to talk about too. This is a nonpartisan issue, and that's personal responsibility. And I try to talk about this everywhere I go, in every room I go into, whether it be a strong conservative room like this or somewhere where it's kind of a mixture. Personal responsibility is a nonpartisan issue. And I think it's important for us conservatives to position it like that, because I'll be just perfectly honest with you. We do, as a whole, as a party, a bad job of pointing our fingers at the other side, right? It's the whole plank in my eye, piece of dust in your eye. It's biblical, right? We need to continue to look at ourselves. We need to continue to look at the things that we're not doing right. Continue to look at three things. I challenge folks with three areas, personal responsibility. I think I said this here before, but let's use education. We can continue to throw billions and billions and billions of dollars at education. And I'm all about improving schools. I got 3 kids that are coming through a public school system. So I'm all, my kids are not going to live in my basement when they graduate from college. I love them to death. They can live next door, but they're not going to live in my basement. But we look at education, we continue to throw billions and billions and billions of dollars at it. If we as Americans spend 15 minutes a night at the kitchen table with our kids. Not because it's easy, not because we got a ton of spare time, but because it's our responsibility. We talk to them about their homework. We talk to them how important their future is and how important education is to their future. We let them know that we care. Guess what? Instantly, the education of our children is going to improve, and it doesn't cost us a dime. That's personal responsibility. Second, finances, and this starts to step on some folks' toes all over the country. We want to elect people that don't bankrupt our country, don't bankrupt our governments. We have got to do a better job of not bankrupting ourselves. Stop maxing out credit cards. Stop buying things you can't afford. Stop wanting to keep up with the Joneses, right? We will not have the personal resolve as a nation to elect people that that are not fiscally responsible if we can't do it ourselves in our own lives and our own businesses. It's tough to hear, but it's the truth. I'm tired of folks trying to dodge the issues when we have to continue to look at ourselves and be better at it. And if you're good at it, then be an advocate for it. Be an advocate to your children, to your neighbors, to your coworkers. Be bold and courageous with what we know is going to work in this country. The last area is trying to reduce your footprint on government spending, wasteful government spending. Right, I'll walk into some very conservative conversations. Everybody in the room says when they walk in, and I believe them, that they want to cut government spending. And I'll start intentionally talking through programs. And I'll get to one and say, whoa, 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 wait a minute, that's a really good program. And then I'll get to another program. Whoa, 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 wait a minute, no, my company works with them, that's really, really good. I get that, but guess what the problem is? That means there's 350 million important programs in this country because everybody's going to have their important program. We have got to create a selfless generation of elected officials and citizens that have their eye on their kids' generation and not their own personal fortunes. It's hard. It's painful. It's going to be tough. But it's got to be willing to do so. Let me close with this. Many of us in this room, many of us in this state and in this country share a similar faith. A faith that calls on us as individuals to help the poor and to reach out for those that are in need. It doesn't call on our government to take on this task alone. It's simply not enough, and I speak to conservatives, liberals, and everybody in between for this issue. It's simply not enough for us to have the attitude that if we write a check for our taxes, that the government's going to take care of the needy. We as individuals have got to help our neighbors, we've got to help our coworkers, we've got to take care of our families, we've got to look for opportunities to donate our money, volunteer our time, mentor those that are lost, and even in times of need, bow your head and say a prayer with somebody. So I encourage everybody to take this. So that's all I got. If I've got a couple minutes, go ahead, Steve.
So on the Obamacare plan, how is that going to affect Georgia's limits on Medicaid, and is it going to roll that back? Is it going to keep it where it's at? Because they used the states they raised the levels in many states.
You're saying as far as expanding Medicaid?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no expansion in Medicaid. The governor's taken a clear stance. It's 370,000 or 625,000 would be the expanded Medicaid roll. Governor's taken a stance that that's not going to happen. And you know, it's a tough issue. You know, like there's people I've met. It's not tough from a conservative elected official point of view, but as a person that's compassionate and understands that these people are in need. I continue to think back to if I give a man a fish, I feed him for a day. If I teach him how to fish, I feed him for a lifetime. And I think everyone in this country, too many people in this country, want to use Medicaid as a solution. It's just a Band-Aid. Right? We can't afford to take that on. Governor knows it. It's a bait and switch. Right now, the feds say that they're going to pay 100% of the expanded Medicaid rolls. In a year, it goes to 95%, then it goes to 90%, and then it's who knows what it is. They don't publish a number. If we had to pay for what would then, if you match those numbers up and we're at 600 and some thousand now, by the time in 3 or 4 years we'll be at 1 million with zero federal aid, we're bankrupt. We can't handle it. Not to mention, look, I struggle with this too. I hear so many people say, yeah, but that's our money up there. That's our money up there. Go get it. I get your conversation, but guess what? That's our tax money, right? That's our money. We're taxing ourselves twice just because the state of Georgia has the ability to go get federal funds. It's a big vicious circle. We're going to get that money, but then we're just increasing our taxes. We're doing nothing, about taking ourselves on. It's like the not the hospital bed tax, but the hotel tax. Folks, these are strong conservatives that'll say, yeah, but I get it, we're just charging whatever it is, 6-7% on a hotel room, but those aren't Georgians who live there. So it's just people flying here, and so they don't care. Those are Americans that are staying in those rooms. Right? Those are Americans that are staying in there. Those are our brethren that are staying in those rooms that we're taxing. And guess what? They're going to go home and say, that's a great idea. We're going to tax them when they come to Colorado or California, whatever. I mean, how counterintuitive could that be?
That's what they do.
So revenues are up, right?
Revenues are up. Haven't seen what that number is going to finally roll out. We work with two different budgets. We work with the amended 2014, and then we'll go into the 15 budget. Governor has put out, I think, an additional $550 million that went towards education. I give him a lot of credit. I don't know if y'all listened to the State of the State speech, and then he was up here in Forsyth County, but there was one area of education, and they tried to give him a trap, I guess, the liberal media, where it was easy for him in campaign season to come out and say, I'm going to give $550 million and it's going to go towards teacher pay raises. It's a great thing to happen, right? But it's all smoke and mirrors, because if the way the school districts work is if he gives the money to school teachers, they have to match with their funds. And I'm going to get some of this wrong. Some of you educators will probably have the right terminology. But the non-teacher folks also have to get those raises, which the school district would then have to pay for out of pocket, which would mean furlough days don't get pulled back. So by giving the school districts the money, which we all, I think, in this room agree that the best decision makers are the ones closest to us, right? So we give the money out to the school districts and let them decide how they're going to spend that. They're able to repeal the furlough days, get us closer to 180 days, or in some instances get us to 180 days, which then also equates to teachers getting raises, and it's not a bait and switch. So I'm glad to see him do that. Obviously, he's got an opponent, a Democratic opponent, who's pushing education strongly. So there should be some, but look, at the end of the day, I don't struggle with it. I know where I stand on it. That's our money. So there's a revenue surplus, but it's because they've collected our money. I want to continue to look for ways to give that back. One of the areas that we talk about is eliminating the state income tax. Right? And you go to the Georgia's version of fair tax, right? Not the federal version, but you look at what a fair tax looks like. All the economists, and these are smart people, that there's a 3-year gap that we have to fill, right? So as soon as let's say you repealed the entire income tax and you went to a higher sales tax, there's going to be a 3-year lag where if I made a certain amount of money, I'm used to living on a certain lifestyle, and so I wouldn't spend that money I get to keep now that's not going out towards income taxes. But at the end of 3 years, people would realize that, okay, I can spend that money because there's a surplus there. So you got to have a slush fund. So I look at opportunities like this where we've got surplus budget room, the money's been collected. Let's start stockpiling that cash window there so that we can eliminate the state income tax.
But, I mean, as revenue comes in, the budget goes up. That's always the way it's been.
That's not a law. That's a mentality.
Have you seen any numbers on the new tag tax?
No, there was some buzz about it. The budget came out and it was about that thick, and I
Yeah,
forgot to take
yeah.
speed reading in college. But there's some hearings this week, Monday, Tuesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday. We've got some good, strong hearings that we should be a part of. There's a couple of folks that I know in that committee that we're supposed to meet tomorrow morning and talk about what that, because it seems like it's a mess. It seems like it's a boondoggle. I mean, there's a big number that's getting produced out of that, which it should be. It was pitched as a revenue neutral event.
Right. Imagine that.
Yes, sir.
I hear you're speaking about education a lot. What is your position
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be determined. There's a strong voice that's out there. One of my closest colleagues is Mike Dudgeon, and many of you in this room know it. And Mike has taken a position that is, and Mike has got his strong education background. He's obviously on the school board. He's probably the most intelligent man I know. He truly is. I don't know if any of you have gotten to interact with Mike Dudgeon, but he's a very, very smart guy. The position he's got, and I said this to the school board a couple of weeks ago. We had a pre-legislative meeting. and I've got 3 kids in the public school system, so I'm looking at this through the eyes of a dad more so than I am a legislator. There are certain things in Common Core that absolutely make sense. They're good, strong, educational pieces. But there are some things that are just absolutely ridiculous that make no sense. The reporting, I mean, all of this stuff that we know makes no sense. I can't, and I said this to the school board, I said, for the life of me, I don't understand why anybody in this room wants to fight this battle, right? If the state is against Common Core, and there's certain things that are good and there's certain things that's not, take the things that are good that people agree on. You're not going to get 10.5 million people to agree, but that the core of people agree with. Take that out and rebrand it. Why tie yourself into a program that doesn't have overwhelming support in the state? I asked the school board point blank here, and this is a great education system in Forsyth County. Like it or not, this is probably one of the best education systems in the state. The reports, all the information that comes out of here, and also my report. I got 3 kids in there. I love the school system. And I asked them, I said, are you for Common Core or not? Their answer overwhelming was, yes, we are. And I said, tell me why. And there was a couple of reasons. I said, did you choose to be in Common Core? And they said, yes. I said, it wasn't mandated on you? And they said, no, we chose to be a part of it. Now, yes, it was put out there and it was going to be enrolled statewide, but we wanted to be a part of it. And I said, so why do you want us? Why don't you take that position and go out and communicate that to the folks that are in the community? Why don't you get with the folks in the community and find out what they don't like about it? Because they mentioned things that they don't like either. So, long story short, look, there's things that are in it that probably are good. There's a lot of things that I don't like about it. There's a lot of things that y'all don't like about it. There's a conversation that's created right now that is frictional. There's 2 sides butting heads, and there's nothing happening in the conversation. I don't like that. I'm seeing us lose time. I want to get to a point where both sides can talk about what they like and don't like and make something happen.
Doesn't it make sense that a system like that, where everything is coming out of one central location, has the possibility of turning into an indoctrination program?
Oh, absolutely.
Whatever is operating-
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I want my kids' education decisions being made in Forsyth County because I know the values of this community.
Isn't that enough to make the decision then that could be taken away from the local level for good, forever? And
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely one of the areas for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a single person in this room who doesn't want our local board, our local commissioners, our local teachers to make those education decisions.
And I hate to interrupt, guys. I promise you, this is a great conversation, and I hate to interrupt, but I did promise that I would give Kay 30 minutes, and I can't give her 30 minutes if we continue to give Geoff more time. I hate to do that, because this is a great conversation.
You can let him talk as long as he
But-
wants to.
Okay, well, then I won't interrupt him. I will point out these pieces of paper, hopefully on the desk, on your table, you've seen that. I have more up here. This does have information about Common Core. One of the things that is coming up February 4th, mark it on your calendar, there will be a rally at the Gold Dome talking about Common Core. We will not agree that Common Core is good because most of us believe that Common Core is to education when Obamacare is to healthcare. So that's our position on Common Core. Good things in Obamacare. You can find that much you like about it. Good things
Can
in
you
Common
email those to
Core
me?
that you
I
can
haven't
find
found
those, that you don't get kicked off if you've got pre-existing conditions. Okay? Good thing. I can find a good thing. I can find a good thing if I look far enough. But that's not enough. All right, so we'll give 5 more minutes, Kay, and then.
One thing I'll say about that too is I think the education system, we've got to get away from not allowing states to be competitive. I mean, one of them, I'm a builder, and I can tell you right now that houses we build or neighborhoods that we're in that we're successful in, it's because they have great education systems. Where do we sell houses? We sell houses in Forsyth County, East Cobb, because they have great education systems. I want to brand Georgia's education as Georgia's education. I want us to grow it and it be a part, it's a free market system where we can figure out what works best with our values. Do I want my kids to pray in school? Absolutely. Absolutely I want my kids to pray in school. But I'll tell you this, we need to do a better job of praying with our kids at home. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
What can we do as individuals
individuals and as a tea party to help you get these bills through? Because I can feel energy in this room for support for 707 for sure. Do you-
Yeah, so the email thing, I got the sheet earlier where the email addresses and the postcards for I think it was for the Common Core bill that's in committee. Those emails are impactful. I mean, I get 1,000 emails some days that come in, and myself and some folks that work with me, we go through every single email. And, you know, got folks in Washington, there's somebody there who counts the number of calls that come in and they log them. I mean, we get that pressure. We understand it. I know where I'm going to vote most of the time. I mean, Mike Dudgeon and I, for better or worse, as far as our relationships down there, we're probably in the top 5 or 6 most conservative voters at the Capitol. That's just how I'm wired. That's how I'm personally wired. Which gives us an interesting opportunity to not, and this kind of leads to an answer to your question. I learned this in my business life, got here through my faith. You may get there different ways, that's fine. The best opportunity I have to make a difference in somebody's life is when I disagree with them. If we agree, I can't make a difference, right? Because we're just going to continue to agree. We like each other. Oh yeah, even if we don't think eye to eye, we're not really going to hurt each other's feelings. But when you disagree with somebody, boy, you've got every reason in the world to poke your eyes out. But where does that get you, right? What it gets you is what's happening in Washington, D.C. is this complete stalemate where the folks can't even begin to talk. So just because I disagree with you, now I've created an opportunity to show you by example why my position is the right position. Create a conversation. I may not get you to vote for the bill. I'm looking for your support on this one, but I'm going to create a conversation that allows me to continue to change your mind and to change your heart. I think as a Tea Party, this goes nationally. We have got to win millions of people's hearts before we win their votes. We've got to win their trust, right? We cannot be, we know we're right. We know the values that are, we watch, the fruits of our labor are that we see our kids grow up and be fruitful and be respectful and go to college and produce and get jobs. We know the path forward is the right path forward. We've got to be examples. We've got to be strong examples. I continue to put pressure with emails and votes and all the opportunities you can. Come down there, get on the ropes. I mean, there's nothing more impactful than you're sitting there on the House floor and somebody drives all the way down to the Capitol, tells the page to write you a note, and you're sitting there thinking about a big vote, and they hand you a letter, and you got to walk out on the ropes, and you got to defend your position. That's impactful. Yes, sir.
Mike Dudgeon sat right here in this room, and several of us asked him questions concerning Common Core, and he was all over this room without ever answering one question. I have personally been involved in learning a lot about Common Core. It starts at the United Nations and goes to the federal government, and it says that they're going to take out God, they're going to take out prayer, they're going to make it so that the Islamics and all these other religions, they can say what they want, but the Christians cannot say one word. And on top of that, the Federal Reserve has already, with Common Core, taken the complete running of the local school boards and made it state and federal mandated rather than Forsyth County or any other county. And on top of that, the teachers, a good share of them, are so afraid to say anything that they are hiding in the closet because of Common Core. You can say all you want to about it, and you can say all you want to about the good in it. I haven't found anything that's good, because it's going to ruin our nation through the schools.
Yeah. So, hopefully you understand what my position is. I don't support Common Core, but I'm also a realist to understand that there's not 100% of the line items that are in there are negative. There are things in there that are good, just like any other education program.
I haven't found it.
Well, we'll continue to look. The point I make is Mike Dudgeon is probably one of the most godly men I know. In fact, I can tell you this. Mike Dudgeon and I sit in the basement in the Capitol every single day in a room with 11 other individuals from around the state. And we pray every single day.
You need to
So-
pray for discernment about Common Core.
Say again?
You need to pray for discernment about Common Core. It's gonna ruin succeeding generations in America.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it.